What's up, guys? Welcome back to the From the Sideline podcast with Francis.
I'm Peter, and today we have another episode. It's been a while, but we're back. I feel like I say that every time. But today on the agenda, we're going to first be talking about the Seahawks, then the Giants, then moving on to our conference champion predictions from the AFC and the NFC. Then we're going to be talking about MVP and awards, and then we're going to be playing our guessing game. And then finally, we're going to be capping the episode off by a little college football talk, talking about the Heisman, and then talking about the college football playoff.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you follow, notification bell, and listen to future episodes waiting to come. So let's get right into it. So starting with the Seahawks game versus the 49ers, to me, it just brought a lot of optimism and stuff because, I understand that they weren't really healthy. They didn't have Nick Bosa or George Kittle, or they didn't have like 5 of their starters on defense. They didn't have Travarius Ward or Lenore. They didn't have either of their 2 starting cornerbacks or their best defensive player or best player in general, maybe, or George Kittle. No Ayuk. But all that being said, we still played great. Our defense held them to under 20 points. The first time we've done that since they had Nick Mullins starting, and also it's the lowest points they've been held to this entire season so far. So, that's just a great testament to our defense and Mike McDonald. And then the other thing I want to talk about is our offensive line. Connor Williams retired right before this game, and honestly wasn't too sad about it. But Olu stepped in at center for him and played phenomenally. We've been plugging him in at guard a lot because we've just been like rotating guards because none of them have been good. And then also Abe Lucas came back to start at right tackle, and just those 2 guys really held it down for us on the offensive line. I saw on Instagram that this is the first time this entire season where our offensive line hasn't been bottom 4 in offensive line rankings. I think we were 21st for this week. That's great to see. And like I said, with Geno, I don't think any other quarterback in this league could do any better than him, maybe besides the few elite ones like Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar with this offensive line. But since it's developing, we've seen what Geno is able to do. That game-winning drive was phenomenal and, just gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Francis said about that 49ers game. Like, there's a lot of circumstances. There's a lot of things that went our way, but that game was just absolutely crucial for our morale and even just the morale as fans. Because going back to that Bills game, the last episode we had was right after the Falcons game. We were riding high, just blew out the Falcons, and then we got just absolutely pummeled by the Bills, then lost a heartbreaker to the Rams, and then finally got back on track with this game against the 49ers. So it's been a wild ride. There have been a lot, like that Bills game. I think we were all just like screaming at Geno, his pocket presence. We've talked about this a lot last year, but it is not like it's very difficult to watch. But so that's probably my one flaw with him. But I do think he's done a pretty good job. And in that Rams game, he threw 3 picks, but JSN had the best game of his career, which was really, really kind of that we bounced back that game. But things just didn't go our way at the end, so that's why it's really great that the luck kind of came back to us against the 49ers, because if we're being honest, we probably should have lost the 49ers game and won the Rams game. But it's good that it happened in the order that we did, or that it did, and now we have DK Metcalf back. And I think that that period without DK gave JSN a lot more opportunities, a lot more confidence that he can be that number 1 guy. He was just absolutely cooking the Rams. He had 180 yards, 7 receptions, 3 touchdowns, but he probably should have had 250 if it wasn't for the flags. So, and I do think he showed a lot more. We've seen him primarily used as a third down, slot, short route type of guy in the NFL, but without DK, he was able to stretch the field and showcase his rack ability, which was really impressive. And then as for the defense, cutting Tyrell Dodson, I did want to bring that up. Just kind of a head scratcher. Ernest Jones has been good, and then now we're plugging in the rookie Tyrese Knight, our 4th rounder, I think it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a head scratcher. He was a really good player for the Bills last year, the highest graded PFF linebacker. He took a step back this year, but he was still pretty serviceable, and I don't really understand why to cut him exactly. I haven't looked specifically into the contract details, but maybe he has like a non-guaranteed contract so they can get rid of him. Maybe they like what they've seen from Tyrese Knight in practice, but losing a lot of that kind of, well, I don't want to say veteran because he's not that old of a player, Tyrell Dalton, but plugging in a rookie in there, I just don't really get like making him go from having no playing time to full playing time. So there's been some kind of questionable decisions. And as for the cornerback position, Trey Brown, Josh Jobe, there's not really a lot you can do there. You have to play one of them. Yeah. Apparently, according to Francis, Josh Jobe's been pretty good on the stat sheet, like PFF.
Like lowest passer rating allowed.
Yeah, but I think it goes for every Seahawks fan watching him. It does not.
Well, it's not like he's going up against like their best wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's going against like their third best receiver. So.
Yeah. So we've been dealing with those sorts of things. Witherspoon's taken a little bit of a step back, but Tariq Woolen has taken a step forward. He's back to his rookie year self, which is really good to see. He's been mirroring team's number one guys. He was going against Keon Coleman. He was covering him super well, but Coleman is just has really good contested catch ability. So even though he gave up yards in that game, I really liked what I saw from him, and I think the future's looking bright, but we really, really need to improve our pass rush defense and also get that running game going on offense, because Kenneth Walker has just had nothing the last 3 weeks. He's only 100-yard game this season was week 1, and Zach Charbonnet has just been absolutely able to do nothing throughout the season. He's averaging like 2 yards per carry maybe. So we really, really need to pick that up if we want to have somewhat of a chance of sneaking into the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, touching up on what Peter said, I mean, first of all, I was going to talk about Tyrell Dodson first, but yeah, Zach Charbonnet, I don't know what's happening, but he looks like terrible recently. Like he looks so slow and like no explosion whatsoever, no like breaking tackles, no elusiveness. Nothing. Just, I mean, when Kenneth Walker was out, Zach Charbonnet actually looked pretty serviceable. Not as an RB1, but, he looked all right. And receiving upside was there. He was finding the gaps. He was explosive and aggressive and physical. But recently, when we've been using him, like that fourth down where we did not convert.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Charbonnet, I mean, he just doesn't look. He needs to step it up. But, okay, yeah, Tyrell Dodson, from what I've seen and heard, like on Twitter and like Instagram and stuff, I think the Tyrell Dodson cut was like his run defense was just like not cutting it, and like Mike McDonald was just not having it anymore. And I mean, like obviously I'm not like an insider and I don't know that much information, but that's just what I heard, which makes sense. I mean, he wasn't doing great in the run game. He was more of a pass guy. And he still wasn't that good in the pass game. But, like, he was, like, a solid tackler. And I don't know. But cutting him was kind of a head-scratcher. But, I mean, I trust Mike McDonald. He's a mastermind when it comes to the defense. So I'm just going to trust him on this one. But, yeah, I mean, Tyrese Knight is pretty freaking raw. And he doesn't really have much of a skill set developed yet. So just plugging him in to start at our inside linebacker spot next to Ernest Jones don't know how well it's going to work out. But, yeah, me and Peter both agree that the Seahawks really need to get, like, some sort of edge rusher because our defensive line on paper, at the start of the season, I was so hyped for it because, last season Boye Mafe was a stud, and he's been decent this season but not as good. And then Leonard Williams, a vet who's Pro Bowl vet, was one of the best D tackles in the NFL. I mean, he's been playing pretty well recently. And then Byron Murphy, our first-round pick. And then, Derek Hall was really good at the start of the season. But on paper, it should be really good. But, they're just not generating a lot of pressure to the quarterback. So, I mean, if we just had one elite edge rusher, this defense would be Legion of Boom 2.0. And, like, I mean, just seeing games where, like, Nick Bosa, like, at the start of the Seahawks game, he was just such an impact to the defense, and it just like blows up the entire opponent's offense.
Even like when we played the Rams, just seeing Jared Verse.
Dude.
I mean, Byron Murphy was definitely a smarter pick at the time, but when like getting a good edge rusher, in my opinion, in the NFL it's probably one of the three most important positions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is so crucial that you're able to have a good pass rush. And one man can do it on his own as much as people may like. One man can make a difference so much. Like earlier, before we started, Francis and I were talking about Trey Hendrickson in that Sunday Night Football game. He wasn't even getting sacks because he was getting doubled, but he was just disrupting every single play.
Time.
And to have a guy like that, he improves your team by so much. So I think it's worth it to take a swing. Jared Verse, he was a super highly touted prospect, and then he started falling a little right as the draft started, but the Rams scooped him up, and he's been just absolutely sensational for them. So I think going forward, the Seahawks really need to make that a priority, and instead of just like picking best player available, they really, really need to take a swing at an edge guy, maybe even trade up in the future. I know that's not really a John Schneider thing to do, but having a good edge rusher, like that, all great teams have a good edge rusher for the most part. Like the Falcons, for example, they have a super high-powered offense. Kirk, Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Bijan, just an absolutely insane offense. But they have been getting blown out. Teams have been putting up a ton on them because they can't get a pass rush.
Yeah.
The Seattle Seahawks put up 34 points on them. So yeah, that's just an example showing that every good team needs to have a good pass rush, and good pass rush can come from just one great pass rusher.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, edge rushers are I think it's quarterback and edge rusher are the two most important positions on a football team, because edge rushers can be just one guy to just make a huge impact, like the quarterback position. Like, if you look at, I don't know, cornerback, there's still, in the secondary, there's still so many other targets and weapons that you need to guard and stuff. But, like, an edge rusher just one guy can generate so much pressure and do so much damage. And, honestly, obviously, if we trade up for a guy that's like a great high first-round grade pick, amazing. But I honestly would rather prefer if we just go all in free agency or a trade on one like elite edge rusher that's like on the market or something. Because we just need one guy that we know is like a lock that's gonna be good, like a Trey Hendrickson. But we would have to give up so much, but I think it's worth it. And we're kind of in. Not sort of like a win-now situation, but, we kind of are, because, most of our best players' contracts are due next season, and we don't have much time to waste. We have such talent on this roster right now, and we can't really waste it. So I think we need to make our moves now, like the Rams did when they won the Super Bowl. They just went all in on some guys for like 1 year, and it paid off, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah. So now we're going to be moving on. We're going to be discussing the New York Giants and the recent demotion of Daniel Jones from QB1 to QB3 and now QB4, apparently behind Drew Lock and Tim Boyle. Being behind Tim Boyle is just sad. Yeah.
Former top 10 pick.
The Giants have just been an absolute disaster this season. The Saquon decision is going to come back to haunt them forever. But honestly, I think hindsight is 20/20. Putting him behind the Eagles' offensive line, he was bound to succeed. But when he was with the Giants, he was only averaging 4 yards per carry, 3.9 yards per carry.
He was getting killed.
Yeah, people forget about that. So he wasn't really benefiting them all that much. And I think cycling out running backs, as good as Saquon is, he wasn't really improving their team that much because they couldn't get a good line behind them. And I think Tyrone Tracy is doing a pretty good job right now filling in his shoes, the rookie converted receiver from Purdue. But yeah, as far as Daniel Jones goes, Francis is a pretty big Daniel Jones hater, but I'm not that much of a hater of him. I think they should have kept him for probably 1 to 2 more weeks, just because there's no point in playing. If you really don't think he's good, then you tank for a draft pick, and then if you really want to win games, then maybe you play Drew Lock. But for playing Tommy DeVito, if I was going to tank, I would rather tank with Daniel Jones, because we've at least seen him be good in Brian Dable's system. So I think it would have been worth it to just ride the season out with him if you wanted to tank, or start Drew Lock if you wanted to win games. But DeVito is just, you get neither of those things. So, and it doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. We saw Locke was really good with the Seahawks last season. Or not really good, but he's a really good backup. He's one of the best backups in the
That
league.
one game against the Eagles, that was clutch.
Yeah, the celebration. But he's one of the best backups in the league, I would say. But I do think this benefits Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson and the Giants receivers because it's really apparent that they were not they were not on the same page with Daniel Jones. Neighbors was faltering and Robinson was faltering. They were both faltering in recent weeks, and their offense was just dying down. And I do think this means the Giants are going to fire Brian Daboll in the offseason, which I just think is such a big mistake. He's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. He's such a good play caller. And when people have been, when Giants fans especially have been getting mad at him this season, and when critics have been criticizing him, I think it's because he's just calling plays that are too advanced for Daniel Jones to execute on. I know I was praising him earlier, but that's just because we've seen it work in the system before. But now Jones is just pure skills, and there's film that exists, and teams have just completely figured him out. So I think that's why you would go the Drew Lock ways. But it's not Daboll's fault at all. His play calling is really good, and his ability to get his weapons involved and make certain players shine to their brightest is really good. And they're going to end up firing the offseason, and some team is going to pick him up as an offensive coordinator, and then they're going to be really good, and then he's going to get hired as a head coach again.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's going to go. And I don't know. I really hope they don't do it because I'm not that much of a Giants hater. I know there are a lot that exist, but it's just a really unfortunate situation for him because he's really doing all he can, and he's a really good football coach, but there's just nothing he can do with his current roster.
Do you really think that Neighbors and they're going to benefit from DeVito starting?
Well, maybe it's a little bit of wishful thinking because Malik Neighbors is on my fantasy team, but I do think they were just really anti-Daniel Jones. You could see Neighbors, there was a little frustration boiling there. But honestly, we'll just have to see.
Because I watched DeVito last season. He was not very good. And I mean, Drew Lock is obviously better, but this is also a head scratcher decision, and it's just it's confusing because if they want to tank, then why start Tommy DeVito? It's just confusing to me. And yeah, I am a Daniel Jones hater, but I mean, I don't have much to say about this because it's just a pretty bad decision. But in the NFL, why are you? I don't think teams really want to tank. I don't think that's a real thing. I feel like that's a thing that the media says about teams because they're doing bad, and then they just maybe the fans want a better pick, and they're just tank. But do you really think the players want to just lose games and just lose out the rest of the season? Because I mean, the Seahawks have been in this situation before where we were so bad. But obviously, our players, we wanted to win more, and I wanted to tank as a fan to get a higher draft pick. But
and also the coaches really want to not.
Yeah, tank. They don't want to get fired and stuff, so they're not going to try to tank. So I don't think tanking is the reason why they're starting Tommy DeVito.
Well, I think you could say that, but I also think the owner and the executives could put pressure.
I guess.
Because ultimately they're the ones that call the shots.
But then maybe that means that Daboll won't get fired then because they're the ones that are calling.
But
him.
I'm just saying that because there's been a lot of speculation.
I don't think the tanking is the reason, to be honest. Especially for a franchise like the Giants, such a rich franchise, and I know they're not actually in New York City, but they're right next to it, and it's obviously New York, so they're gonna have the whole fan base of New York. It's a big team, a big franchise, and it's just a bad look for them because obviously they want free agents to come to them. They want players to want to come to their team, and that's just not what they're doing right now. They got a good one with Neighbors, and Brian Burns was a good trade, great trade. We need to trade like that, like a Brian Burns kind of guy. But, yeah, this is confusing to me. The Giants are just don't think this is going to help them out in any sort of way. Because also this draft class, I'm not very high on it. And it's not a great one, especially for quarterbacks. I mean, really, Shedeur Sanders is your franchise quarterback for the future. A little bit iffy there. But, yeah. The Daniel Jones decision over Saquon was, like Peter said, that's hindsight, but it's still a terrible decision in my opinion because, I mean, look how good, like, Tyron Tracy is performing.
Yeah.
You don't think Saquon could do just as good, if not way better? Like, obviously Saquon's a better running back than Tracy.
One of the things I would say the reasons why it was a bad decision was just because you're giving him to the Eagles, the divisional rival, and that elevates their team so much. But I still think that, like, Tracy, I mean, he's only had that starting role for, like, a few games.
Since the Seahawks game.
Yeah, he hasn't been that great. He's been good, but so I think Saquon would still be a lot worse than he is with the Eagles.
Well, yeah, but just, I mean, if you have...
And he wouldn't help them win games because he wasn't helping them win games last year.
But just on one hand you have Saquon, and on the other hand you have Daniel Jones. Like, is it really that hard of a decision? Like, you're looking at Daniel Jones, it's like, I know you picked him top 10, and, like, he's still on his contract. You just signed him to this contract extension and stuff. But, bro, you're picking between Saquon, like, maybe the best running back in the NFL, or Daniel Jones. That's just insane to me how sometimes overvalued the quarterback position is. I just saw, like, LaShawn McCoy talk about this, and, like, how, like, so even, like, mediocre quarterbacks get paid elite money, but, like, only the best running backs get paid elite money, which is, like, really confusing to me because obviously the quarterback position is the most important position, but it's Saquon Barkley, bro. Like, the number 2 overall pick, the best running back in the NFL, in my opinion, is talent-wise for sure, best running back in the NFL, and it's just pick him over Daniel Jones over him is insane. But let's just move on. It's making me mad.
Okay, so we're gonna be moving on to the conference championship predictions. We're gonna be talking about the NFC, and then we're gonna be talking about the AFC. So out of the NFC, it's pretty straightforward. It's the Detroit Lions. It's not even close. Yeah. They're just absolutely a powerhouse. And you know why? It's because of Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. Him staying was by far the biggest move of the offseason. His play calling, and, like, I'm not trying to ride him, but his play calling and their offensive bag goes so deep.
Oh my God.
It's insane. There's a different player throwing a pass every week, and it's like
the hook and ladders, bro. It's beautiful,
magnificent to watch, and I'm so happy the Seahawks only lost to them by 2 touchdowns.
Because we played good that game.
Yeah, we played really good, and they still handled us. But then besides them, I mean, everyone knows how good they are, but they're insane.
Who would you have besides them in the NFC?
The Eagles have been really good. Their rushing attack, Saquon, Jalen Hurts, Tush Push is back. It was a little faulty after they replaced Kelsey with Cam Jurgens, but now that they've kind of gotten into it, done it enough times, I feel like it's kind of back to what it was in the past. And then Saquon, we talked about this with Giants, but he averaging 6 yards per carry behind that offensive line. Just absolutely beautiful to watch. And they haven't even been really needing to get Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown as involved in recent games, which is, it's not good for fantasy managers, I would say, but it's really just because they don't need to, because their team has been performing super well. What other teams do you think of? I'd say they're probably my second favorite.
I mean, those are obviously the top 2, but I think whoever comes out of the NFC West has a good shot because it's really close right now, and I think any of the 4 teams in I think the Seahawks are probably the weakest team in the NFC West. But any of the 4 teams that come out of the NFC West, I think are going to do good. Like, before season, I think I had the Rams in the Super Bowl as, like, my hot take. And honestly, like, I don't even mind that pick too much. Their offense is elite. Like, Matthew Stafford is so good. Matthew Stafford is an arguably, like, he's like a top 7 quarterback in the NFL, honestly.
Yeah,
he's really good. And now that Puka's back and Cooper Kupp's back, their offense looks elite. If Kyron steps it up, their offense could be, like, top 3. And then, like, their defense, they have Jared Verse and Braden Fisk holding it down for them on the D-line. And they still have Kobe Turner, who's been elite. Cameron Kitchens has been really good. So, I mean, their defense is young and great. And the Rams are looking good. The Cardinals, the 49ers, look strong, Seahawks. And honestly, if the Bucs still had Godwin, I really like Baker in their offense. But I don't. It's gonna be the Lions. If it's not the Lions, I'm gonna be really. They look so good right now, like 52-6. And I saw like their post game like locker room stuff, and it's just like I've never seen a team that's more gritty and has higher morale like ever. Like I felt it through the screen of my phone. It was insane. But all right, let's move on to the AFC. So,
wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Just wanted to mention the Vikings. They've been super fraudulent recently. I feel like they have a really good record in the beginning of the season, and they're fraudulent every year. I know it was the case last year. They won they were 5-0 and they won every game.
Was that last year?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
I thought that was the year before. I thought the last year that with Kirk Cousins they were like really bad at the start.
Okay, I think it might have been 2022.
Yeah,
but whatever. But they've been looking pretty good. Sam Darnold hasn't even been playing that well, but they've been all right. They're a little fraudulent, but they're also 8-2, and that's worth noting.
And the Packers are frauds.
Packers are frauds.
Shout out the Commanders though.
Yeah, Commanders. Daniels has been regressing a little lately. Hopefully, he can bounce back. Get Terry more involved, get that running game more involved. But the addition of Austin Eckler has been noteworthy. They've been getting him involved in the passing game, and I thought him going to Washington was going to be kind of the funeral of his career, but he's still relevant to an extent. Okay, now moving to the AFC.
I got to think about this.
Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Chiefs and Bills first because those are the two teams that just played each other.
Let's talk about that game,
Yeah, that game was just absolutely insane. The Bills finally get over the hump against the Chiefs, but we all know it doesn't matter until it's in January. Arrowhead Stadium, Highmark Stadium, whichever one, in the snow. Super cold. Mahomes not having a great season so far. Allen's having a great season. That really put him back in the MVP race. And one thing that's interesting to me about the Bills, they haven't been relying on one receiver like they were with Stephon all those years. Not all those years, like 3 years. But having Khalil Shakir, having Keon Coleman, having who else? Duncan Cade, James Cook. Their offense has just been super balanced. It's part of the reason why they blew the Seahawks out. Not part of it, it's the whole reason.
Yeah.
And Gino playing bad. But yeah, they've looked great. And then the Chiefs, their defense just has been carrying Patrick Mahomes,
bro.
And they haven't even had Pacheco the entire season. They've been having
Kareem Hunt hasn't been doing well.
Kareem Hunt averaging 3 yards per carry, and they're still 9-1. They were 9-0. Just absolutely insane. And then one more team I want to give a shout out to before we switch, before Francis talks about the Chiefs and the Bills. It's just the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've been playing really well. Russell Wilson finally back in there. George Pickens, Russ connection. It's legit. It's real. He's on my fantasy team, so I'm rooting for him. But yeah, he's such a talented receiver, and we've also seen kind of the bloopers of him. But he's a really, really fun player to watch. And then, quick shout out to the Texans. I don't really want to elaborate on that. Stroud hasn't been playing well, but Mixon, what
dude.
A season from him. Every game besides one that he's been fully healthy for, he's dropped 100 yards and a touchdoam.
I forgot he was on the Bengals, too.
So that's just absolutely crazy.
The Bengals could really use him right now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to me, it's pretty clear, like, the Texans aren't going to win. Nobody out of the AFC South is going to win this year. I think, like, I really want it to be the Ravens' year this year. I think it's due. Lamar just hasn't been healthy or been able to perform in the playoffs, but, I mean, back-to-back MVP seasons here, possibly, and it could be his Super Bowl winning year, maybe. I mean, he has Derrick Henry going off for him this year. Zay Flowers kind of a breakout season, and then their defense has been doing great. Kyle Hamilton, dude, what a stud. He is insane. And then Nate Wiggins, I had him as my highest rated quarterback in this draft, and he's been doing really good. I really want it to be the Ravens this year. I actually don't mind. I don't know why the Chiefs are, like, I know why the Chiefs are so hated on, but actually I don't mind them winning, like, so much because they are a really good team. They're so well coached. I mean, their defense, that field goal block, like, people say it was like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is so bailed, but, like, dude, if you saw that play in, like, slow motion and stuff, that was just beautiful technique there and just a great block. The Bills look special, but I don't think it's their year this year. So, to me, I think the AFC Championship is going to come down, I mean, if they don't meet each other earlier, to the Chiefs and the Ravens. and I really want it to be the Ravens this year, man. I'm so here for it.
Yeah. What a season from Derrick Henry also.
Yeah.
Like, no one expected this. He's been faltering a little recently, but just keeping that yards per carry to an all-time career high and touchdown almost every game. And then 2 more teams just want to give a quick shout-out to in the AFC. They're not going to win the conference. But the Chargers. Francis, you want to talk about them?
Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to segue into a conversation with the Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, but I mean, dude, I just want to say it, but this is my take on that right now. Justin Herbert's better than Joe Burrow, and I haven't been saying, I'll admit it, but right now I think my biggest problem with him, I think a lot of people's biggest problem with him is that he's not clutch and he can't win games. But I mean, we just saw this game; he was able to pull that out. He just looks so much more poised now, and I think it's a really hot take to say Herbert over Burrow, but at this point I'm here for it. I've always said he's more talented than him, and now that he actually beat him, I can clearly say that my statement is that he's better than Joe Burrow because the arm talent, some of the throws he was making made my jaw drop and made me stand up out of my seat. Joe Burrow, he was looking a little bit shaky at times, but Justin Herbert just looked poised, cool, calm, collected, and just the arm talent is top 2 in the NFL.
Yeah. I do agree with Francis that Herbert is more talented than Burrow, but I don't think you can call him clutch just for that game because they were up 28-7, and then Evan McPherson missed 2 field goals that would have won the Bengals the game almost surely. So I think that actually proves the Burrow's clutchness of being able to dig himself out of deep holes and being able to get in uncomfortable situations and being able to beat Patrick Mahomes, which Justin Herbert is not even gotten close to. They blew that lead against the Jaguars in the playoffs, the freaking Jacksonville Jaguars, and Joe Burrow's been to the Super Bowl, so I don't even think it's comparable at all. And Burrow, you can say that he has better receivers, but it's because he's established a connection with those receivers, a consistent connection that we just haven't seen Herbert do throughout his career.
But it's Jamar.
I guess it's Jamar Chase, but it's also T. Higgins.
T. Higgins is really good. He has Ladd McConkey and Quinn Johnson, bro.
Ladd McConkey, we're kind of seeing him establish a connection. But you can say that they're definitely less talented, but he should be able to establish a better connection with him. And I don't understand. You can blame Brandon Staley for being a bad coach, but I think a lot more of the praise should go to Jim Harbaugh that is just all funneling to Justin Herbert. Oh, like what improvement he's had. It's because of Harbaugh's scheme. It's because of Harbaugh's QB mentoring. He turned Colin Kaepernick into a great quarterback. And we already know how talented Herbert is. So when you give him a great coach like that we know transforms quarterbacks, obviously he's going to improve. So I think there's a lot of things that people are overlooking about the Chargers situation and giving Herbert all the praise when a lot of the praise deserves to go to Harbaugh, and it also deserves to go to their defense and Ladd McConkey also. I want to give a quick plug to him.
Well, I agree, but that's what I'm saying. I agree that Jim Harbaugh did elevate his game a lot, but that's what I'm saying. The improvement is there, and this season, I'm saying the Chargers are 8-3 right now. I'm saying that the improvement that Justin Herbert has made.
7-4.
7-4.
7-3.
Yeah, 7. Okay, I was about to say. I thought they had 3 losses. That's the best record he's had in his career to start the season, and by a lot. And the improvement with Jim Harbaugh is just there, and obviously Joe Burrow is not having a great. He's having a great season, but the record's not showing it, and I wouldn't really blame it fully on him. I don't think winning is that much of a quarterback stat, but it depends on the context, and I just think the improvement that Justin Herbert has made this season has elevated him slightly above Joe Burrow, in my opinion. And I would have Justin Herbert easily. I would have him as a top 5 quarterback. I would put it as Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, and then Herbert, and then Burrow.
Yeah,
that would be my top 5.
Well, you're saying that Herbert's having such improvement this season, and I don't really understand why you're looking over Joe Burrow's. He has had insane improvement this season. If his team was remotely good, he would be the favorite for MVP. I'm just looking at the stat sheet. against the Ravens defense, which is the worst passing defense in the NFL. He had 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. Against the Ravens defense, again, he had 430 yards and 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. And then against the Raiders, he had 251 yards, 5 touchdowns. Chargers, he had 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just absolutely clinical passing performance from him. And he's been really, to me, it seems like he's been a lot more smart with the football. He's kind of toning down that gunslinger that we've seen a little in years past. I'm not sure specifically about the stats, but just from watching the games, that's what it seems like. And reestablishing that connection with Jamar, which has been, they've dealt with a lot of injuries over the last few years. I think it's not something to look over, because I feel like if we're comparing last year's Burrow with this year's Herbert, I would for sure agree with Francis. But now that we've seen that Burrow can do the thing again, can be a great quarterback, still, I think it's still him because of what we've seen him do in tough situations.
Okay, just final thought, because we've been talking about this for a while, but I'm just saying that, like you even admitted that Herbert is a more talented quarterback, and I'm just saying with the combination of the talent and the record really just speaks so much to me about the improvements of Justin Herbert, because the talent has always been there, but now he's winning with the talent. And I mean, that was always the argument against Herbert, and now the haters have nothing to say against him. And I mean, Burrow has been playing phenomenally, but I'm just saying Herbert is having a career season, and he's looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
look better than Mahomes.
Okay, so we're just gonna end it there because
it's
not really. There's not really an end to that debate. But now we're going to be doing our game. We're going to skip over our MVP talk, maybe postpone that till next time when we're closer to the end of the regular season, and then probably also push the college football talk to the end. So we're going to finish with the game here. All
right, going into our locks. So my lock is going to be the Dolphins over the Patriots. Must-win game for the Dolphins if they want a chance at the playoffs here. They've been looking a lot better. Tua has been looking a lot better. Tyreek is maybe back. Maybe. Jonnu Smith has been incorporated into their offense a lot. He's been playing really well. Jalen Waddle's still kind of, I don't know what he's doing. But the Patriots aren't very good. Drake May is actually pretty good. But, yeah, Dolphins must-win game. Have them over the Patriots.
So I have 15 points. Francis has 14. It's the first time I've ever been in the lead. Got to get used to it. But my lock is, it's a little ballsy here, but I'm going to go Steelers over Browns. Only at minus 3.5 spread. But I just don't see the Browns winning this game. So I'm going to go with the Steelers, and I'm going to be rooting for them.
Okay, my underdog is going to be the Chargers over the Ravens. I was just hyping up Justin Herbert, and I'm going to take him over the Ravens here. Lamar, MVP frontrunner. Josh Allen could overtake him at some point here if Lamar decides to stop playing so well. But I don't know. The Chargers, if they win this game, the Chargers might solidify themselves as a top team in the NFL here. So I like the Chargers over the Ravens. I was going to take the Rams over the Eagles because I actually do think they're going to win that, but I don't want them to because that's bad for the Seahawks.
Okay, so my underdog is the Browns over the Vikings, or the Bears over the Vikings. Sorry. We just saw that game against the Packers last week. Absolutely brutal loss for the Chicago Bears, but I just think they have some sort of voodoo magic that causes them to lose against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers just own the Bears. Everybody knows that. And the Vikings, like I was saying, they've looked a little fraudulent recently. And I think this is another Rome huge game. I think he gets above 20 fantasy points, 100 yards maybe, touchdown, maybe even 2. And then DeAndre Swift does well on the ground, so I think that's what's going to happen. And I'm just going to say my spread right now. I have the Lions -7 over the Colts. To be honest, I don't know how this is a -7 spread. I know that
it's like -40.
Yeah, I know that Anthony Richardson is back and he's looked really good. I've heard that when he got benched, he started coming in at 4 a.m. working, first guy in, last guy out type of guy. It really made me happy because I'm a believer in Anthony Richardson. I really think he can do well. Obviously, we know how talented he is. It's just getting his completion percentage up and his decision making. and also not putting his body at risk. So, yeah. But as far as the Lions go, it's just they blow every team out, and they're so good. I think they're going to win this game by 21 points, maybe even more. And that's being conservative.
Okay, my spread is the Seahawks over the Cardinals. We're obviously going to win this game, right? So, must-win game for the Seahawks here. 1 game behind the Cardinals. If we win, we overtake the NFC West, I think. I'm not sure. We might lose a tiebreaker, actually, to the Rams if they win. But, because I think in divisional games, we're 1-2 right now. Or, because we lost to the Rams and we lost to the 49ers early in the season. So we're 1-2 right now. I think the Rams are 2-1. So they might have the tiebreaker over us. But they won't win against the Eagles. So we're going to win this game against the Cardinals. It's a 1-point spread. So, I mean, pretty easy to get that spread if we just win the game. It's going to be a tough matchup. Kyler is a pain to go against because we are not good against scrambling quarterbacks. Defensively, I'd say that's like what we give up the most yards to.
He's a little midget.
I don't know if we could say that, but yeah, we don't play well against scrambling quarterbacks. We saw Brock Purdy get that scrambling touchdown. We're not good at the scramblers and the running back checkdowns. That's like our biggest weakness. But we're gonna lock him down. Okay, we're gonna have a QB spy on him the whole time. Our defensive line is gonna hold up. We're gonna get 2 sacks on him. James Conner is gonna have a great game because I have him on both of my fantasy teams. But he's gonna score like 3 touchdowns and we're gonna score, and then that's gonna be it. They're gonna have 21 points, and we're gonna beat them like 38-21. So. That's going to wrap up this episode, right, Peter? So,
yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to tune in. We'll be back in 2 weeks probably.
Maybe next week.
Actually, I'm going somewhere.
Okay, well, 2 weeks. So thank you for listening, and make sure you listen to future episodes.
Also, make sure to follow our club at SAS Sports Journalism. We're going to be doing some interviews recently.
Yeah.
We just had a member commit to Vanderbilt for baseball, so we're going to have an interview coming out on that soon. And then potentially we might have an interview with a mystery professional basketball all-star. So, TBD. Don't want to get your hopes up, but just stay tuned.
All right. Thank you so much.